A while ago, I was talking to a guy at the gym, probably a couple of years ago. Dude is buff out of his brain, definitely on all sorts of gear. I'm not a pro at spotting what people use, but this guy was on the pharmacy, I think, the whole lot. One of each type thing. He had humongous legs, humongous muscles everywhere, veins everywhere popping, which is kind of like that, sign that, you're blasting all sorts of stuff where you have mass on top of mass, and also there's veins all over it. So like your low body fat percentage, whatever. He was kind of saying he was natural, which is kind of abusing my intelligence, but we got over that. Started talking. He said that he pulled 330, 340 on the deadlift, both sumo and conventional. He could do both. We kind of got chatting, and I said to him, this is 2 years ago, I said, look, man, what do you reckon I need to bring up to be able to kind of go to the next level? At the time, I was at 265 deadlift, and I was kind of just picking his brains, whatever. He's an advanced lifter, much more than me, regardless of what he's doing behind the scenes. He is an elite lifter. And he said to me, looking at you, man, I think you need adductors. Out of all the things that he could have said to me, he said adductors. And, now that I'm in that mental state of wide stance, squats, and low bar and all that business, this popped in my mind and I started thinking about it. Today, fresh off the volume day yesterday, I'm sore, man. I don't have the mobility, I don't have the strength or whatever. And in two minds about whether I should reattempt front squats, which kind of hurt me last week, doing front squats straight after the volume day of wide stance squats. And I thought to myself, yesterday it felt great when I did wide stance. So let me warm up with the wide, go up to 2 plates for a set of 5. It's going to be ugly, but, let's just do something. Warm the body up with the wide and then go to front squats and see how that feels. That went well. Whether you appreciate this muscle or not, the adductors are one of those all-rounders. They do everything. They do hip flexion, hip extension, which is weird, right? Like, never thought about that. But they also obviously do adduction. I think they play parts in, if I'm not mistaken, in internal rotation as well. It's a big muscle group, lots of different fibers. So, when I say all these things, not every adductor does everything that I just said. It's a big team. But it's interesting. I remember looking at him, and he's, mostly a bodybuilder before anything. And, his adductors were humongous. His legs were huge, everything was huge, but I just remember his adductors were massive. And there was veins all over it, and it just looked like a damn big growth, like a freaking tumor or some sort. That's how abnormal it looked. And because of that, he had this like wide stance walk. His whole gait changed because he can't walk straight like me, without the adductors. But it got me thinking, I don't know how many people appreciate adductors and their role in all these movements that we're talking about, especially squats. So here I am discovering that adductors hurt, and I strained it last week doing front squats after I've fatigued the living hell out of them doing wide stance squats low bar the day before. So then I'm like, wow, okay, so adductors play a part in a narrow stance front squat. Why is that? Well, like I talked about yesterday, it's the deep range of motion. It's that main role that it does in the bottom of an ATG squat. And the front squats are very deep, as we all can kind of get it deeper in a front squat than any other variation of a squat. So we go deep, and the primary hip extensor in that position in the deep squat, the main hip extensor is going to be the adductors. Glutes are kind of out of the mix because of leverage, because of their position, they're too overstretched, and they can't act upon this particular joint angle. So, you could probably make an argument if you're getting stapled in the bottom of a front squat, maybe adductors are the thing missing. Now, do I say to you then, okay, off you go to the good girl machine and just go nuts with that and expect that to carry over? Not necessarily. Adduction, the fibers that do adduction might not necessarily do hip extension, right? So it's a bunch of tissues that we call the adductors, but there's many different ones. There's the magnus, there's the, oh God, all of these names are escaping me now. There's that long thin one that goes all the way, crosses the knee joint. It goes from like the hip, the outer hip to the inner knee. I forget that. It's some like Greek name. It sounds all fancy. I wanted to say pectineus for some reason, but it's not pectineus. Pectineus is the damn chest. There's one of these muscles, I forget now, but there's many different ones, and they all kind of have weird roles which you wouldn't expect. So What am I saying? I'm saying that maybe there is a really good carryover there to be had between wide stance squats and front squats, because both wide and super narrow deep require this hip extension. And whatever the wide does might be carrying over. Now, my assessment so far about what's happened with the 285 deadlift and the really good streak that I had in December, I reckon I, for the first time, started training my adductors. For the first time, you say, well, I think the wide stance squats do more adductors than any other bloody stance. Yes, I mentioned front squats are deep, it does wonderful things, but I've never done a lot of front squats and working up the next day with really sore adductors. Whereas wide stance squats, absolutely. Glutes and adductors is what I feel when I do this business. So there's something to this. There's something to all these old school guys, powerlifters, saying that if you get good in the wide, you will be good in the narrow. And maybe this is where this makes sense. Maybe they didn't make it clear. That was the anecdote. The wide does carry over to the narrow. Maybe this is why. The adductors get a thumping in the damn wide, and that helps you get out of the hole in the narrow. Maybe that's the connection here that is not all that clear. I'm feeling great. So my plan is to tinker with wide every single day. Obviously, I'm going to be sore even more tomorrow, 48 hours after. A heavy squat session is going to be even worse 2 days after the insult. It's going to be bad. It's going to be ugly. But, I'll do that and then maybe, play around with a bit of front. But make sure warm up with the wide, just to let the adductors warm up properly and get on the map. And so your brain is kind of aware there's blood going to that muscle, to those joints, to those tendons. All that stuff is going to feel good before I attempt that. Interesting little discovery. This is me speaking, thinking out loud. I'm not telling you facts here. I'm just telling what I feel. And like I always say to you guys, a lot of this stuff is not a true science. It's not like a physics and a maths type of topic where, everything comes down to one result. There's so much variation amongst people. We're all kind of a little bit different. It's a trial and error type of joint. This, feel it out. This is kind of what I've found recently. Some of you guys have been saying, Van, are you doing those abduction for the hips? Man, these wide stance squats are doing everything. I'm not doing any isolation work for the hips at all at the moment. Rather, I'm kind of stretching a lot, whether it's static and active mobility business, but I'm not doing any kind of like muscle strengthening exercise that I did in the past. My hips feel great, and they've never felt better when I do wide stance squats. That is my experience. Now, the intricacies about what's driving what, where, how, when, that's the stuff that I don't really know, and I can speculate. But as I've kind of discovered in recent times, I don't really care. This is all fun to think about, but this movement affects this movement, and I'm going to keep it at that and just keep going it. It's fun to think about the muscles and the insertions and the origins of the muscles and the actions, but don't base that your forward thinking on that. Just know that wide helps with narrow, and keep doing that. Appreciate you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.